Hi, it's George Nordhaus, and welcome to Monday Morning. We are going kind of back to the basics again because it makes a lot of sense for us to do so occasionally, because we all need to kind of step back and look at where we are and where we're going in life and our agency and all that. And who else but Bart Baker to do that, because Bart's doing a lot of the seminars on these, like he did the Monday Morning last week, and he's continuing to do so here. And he has something which I liked, which is called the 3 personal breakthrough qualities. And I know a lot of agency managers are listening, agency owners and so forth, and you may think, well, I'm too old for that. And you may be, but this is a great presentation here, because it goes to the heart of the matter about people. Lets them think about themselves in light of, or in context with their being in an insurance agency. Bart, is, you probably know, is one of the top farmers agencies. He was a fireman for a long time. I always laugh about that because I think that he made that jump from fireman for like 25 years or something in Los Angeles out to Malibu, where he's running a very, very profitable agency. As a matter of fact, on my Monday Morning eye-opener today, I said, hey, Bart is doing that as he doesn't have any marketing program. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy. It's all by referrals, but that's another story. Bart is going to be, well, Bart, let's go to the 3 personal breakthrough qualities. There they are, and welcome again.
Well, thank you, George. I really appreciate it. This is such a great topic to talk about, because it really is one of those things that you said in the beginning, that it's the basic, but it's the basics. I don't really think it matters how long we're in the business for, but every now and then we just have to go back and review those things that helped us to become successful. And we are no doubt in the people business. And the better that we are able to have relationships and make them really strong and grow, the better that we're going to be. So,
absolutely, no question about it. I like that harmony. Yeah. Harmony, that's a good one to start with too.
No, yeah, right, exactly. So these 3 personal breakthrough qualities are 3 qualities that we absolutely have to be committed to and grow with intention. I like to use an example, George, that if you were a doctor and you were like a general practitioner, you would make X amount of dollars, and if you were to be a specialist, you would make a heck of a lot more. And it was because you were able to get a lot of additional education, all those other things. But in our business, because we are dependent upon people and having people like us, trust us, and have confidence in us, when we actually give as much attention to building those qualities within ourselves, it is the equivalent of switching income that is in that medical example that I gave, going from a general practitioner to a specialist. When we in our business get so good at having these 3 personal qualities, it accelerates our income, and it just makes everything so much easier. So when people are confident in us and they like us and they trust us, we're going to get our, we're going to be able to, get the business, practically every time. Is that something that you would agree with, George?
Oh, totally, totally. Incidentally, I liked your picture on that slide. That wasn't fair, was it? No, of course, I totally do. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything to disagree with this. I think it's just a good reminder for all of us.
Most definitely, absolutely. Well, I totally agree, because in our business, we are the pivotal person. It says on here that we are the center of influence in the agency, because the bigger we get, we're not going to be the folks that are running the process or anything else. We're just going to be the figurehead and the person that is going to be the ultimate, I'll call it relationship manager with that client. So if that client knows that there is an extremely competent figurehead, and this could be a situation where you have a producer and everything else is handled, after the point of sale, but that client has such tremendous, feelings for the likability, trustworthiness, and confidence of that person, that everything that follows it is going to be dramatically better, because they know that person at the at the other end is in essence watching the show. So in our business with insurance, the client isn't buying a policy. Obviously, they're buying us. They're buying us as a person, and there are these processes that you have to go through. And the very first one before you could even pass go is likability. So when we are able to be deemed as being very likable in the eyes of the client, that is the green light to move forward. And once that happens, we have the opportunity to be able to show all of these other things that we'll be able to do for them. And the item that follows likability is confidence. So I think confidence, George, is such an interesting word, because when you have confidence, it's one of those abilities that you can transfer confidence to the other person and be so good at it that you can get people to do things just because of your level of confidence that you have in what you're talking about. And it can be used for, it could be used for the other person's detriment. And when we talk about, guys like Bernie Madoff and, Charles Ponzi, these are all examples of, confidence men. And another example I heard is that con man. Con man, prisons are filled with con men. Another term for a confidence man. So in our business, because we have the ability to sell nothing but a promise and a guarantee, we have the ability to transfer confidence. And the better
let me ask you something. Do you think a person, if he's not likable, recognizes it? Do you think if the person isn't likable, he or she can change?
I don't understand what you mean by that one.
Well, all right. I mean, if I got this, I know some insurance agents that are not very likable, and I don't think they're ever going to be likable. I'm just suggesting this. Do you think people realize they're not likable? I don't know.
Well, I think that if you're in this business and you have any level of success, that you obviously already have these qualities to a degree. You're already likable and confident and trustworthy, but it is to the degree that you're able to accelerate and build upon these qualities is going to be to the degree that you're going to be able to grow, or at the very least support yourself with other folks that are. But in this confidence example that we were talking about, when you are able to be viewed as being incredibly confident, so that people just buy from you because you transfer that security to them, the one that backs the whole thing up, and this is where it takes that Bernie Madoff Charles Ponzi equation out of the picture, is the trustworthiness side of it. So when you are viewed as being somebody that is very likable, has tremendous confidence, and can really be trusted, that is the trifecta, so to speak. So business becomes very, very fast, and really just a lot more enjoyable, because you're building these really strong relationships with people. But those are the three core qualities that, when you work on them with intention, you really do skyrocket as far as your growth. So later on in our little podcast today here, I'm going to give some suggestions on tools to use to work on that. Good. But this first one we're talking about here is just on likability. And again, it's the basics, I realize that, but we get the likability factor by finding commonality with people. And typically, people like to connect and have things that are similar. And if we have families, of course, we talk about our families. If we don't, then, gosh, there's all sorts of things. So, if you like wine and I like wine, or, you like cars, I'm into cars. It's just finding that area to be able to click and to connect with the other person. What do you do, George, when you meet with somebody new and you haven't really met them before? Do you find, you've been doing this for so long, it's so automated to you, I'm sure. But do you?
Well, it isn't really. No, I don't think it is. I understand exactly what you're saying, and no, I do to people all the time because we, like we got 100,000 on our mailing list here, and so I'm
Right.
talking to them all the time. So I try to, I think I try to start them with what I say is, you may not know my name or heard of me, and then usually because maybe they have, and I'm calling, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I remember George, I read your, whatever it is, and I kind of start that way. I kind of start a little bit humble. I don't say I'm George Nordhaus, the editor, or the host of Monday Morning, blah 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 blah, because it
Right.
it
Right.
doesn't go over very well. I
Yeah.
come in the back door, sort of.
Yeah, for sure. And and that works for you, and they're able to get you're coming in as the perceived expert, but you do it in a very humble way. And
Try to. It's
yeah.
hard to do. It's hard to be humble.
Um,
There's an old saying on that, but I don't want to get into that.
okay. So once we have that, likability, under our belt, it's the green light to move forward. Now we can actually show that client why we are confident. And confidence is a really interesting character in a person, because it's something that people just pick up on. If you're dealing with somebody that is, competent and confident in their business, you just kind of know it. It's just the way they carry themselves and the words that they use, and it's something that is almost like a psychic connection. And when they really start talking about their product, it is there's just a feeling of security there. But it is because the level of confidence that they have in themselves and in their product and the way it works, that that it just clicks, and it works. And it's typically because the person that's presenting knows their product so well, 100% backwards and forwards. If it's an insurance policy, Dave.
Easy for you to say. That's a hard one.
Well, it just takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of studying. But that's where that example of that medical practice of the generalist versus the specialist, that's where the time and study comes into play. But it pays off in confidence, because we are not coming from the place of trying to make a sale. We never want to sell anything. All we want to do is be the expert and advise people. On my experience, this is what I'm recommending to you. But gone are the days where we try to sell people something. People are much more sophisticated now, and nobody wants to be sold. But we've all heard the expression that they want to own, and we just need to show them why our advice is something that they should consider. So once we are likable and we're confident, now we have the ability to show that we are trustworthy. And trustworthiness is absolutely critical, because confidence can be misleading, like I talked about in the Charles Ponzi example.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but when you're viewed as being trustworthy, George, everything changes, and that's just where all the dominoes just kind of fall, and the walls come crashing down, and you are just on a really great playing field with that client. So the question becomes then, is that how do you demonstrate trustworthiness? And I'll share an example here. It's kind of a personal story, but I don't mind. We had a situation a few years back where a guy called the office, and he had a course of construction policy with us for a home that he was building, and it was just about done. And he called us up and he said, I need to add some content coverage because I'm going to stage the home and put it on the market. So he's going to get furnishings and things. So we added the coverage. An assistant of mine handled it, and I asked if theft was included, and all these things, got all the assurances. And I think you can see where I'm going with this, that there was a mistake in the transaction, and that theft in the long run was not covered under this person's policy. But I told him it was. So he calls me up about 2 months later to file a claim, and I had to tell him at that time that after the claim came back denied, that I'm terribly sorry, but theft wasn't included. And he said, well, there was about $23,000 worth of stuff stolen, and he had a $5,000 deductible. So if you are somebody that was deemed as being, trustworthy and all of that. And if your word is golden, what was, as far as my mind goes, what was the only thing that I could have done at that point? And that was, reached into my pocket and, wrote the guy a check for $18,000 and just apologize for what happened. But it was a decision that was made a long time ago that if these are the foundational qualities that you act upon, sometimes it's hard, but it means so much to your reputation that in this particular case, that client's still with us today. He has referred us to many of his family and friends, and I could say we've definitely made back more than that amount of money that I paid.
Do you think he knew you paid it? Do you think he knew you paid it out of your pocket?
I told him. I told him I did. I told him that there was a mistake. However, I told him he had coverage, and therefore he had the coverage.
That was great.
Yeah, so
made you a lot more money than $18,000 over the years, didn't it?
For sure it did. But back at the time, and trying to explain to my wife why we had to write this guy a check for $18,000 was not.
I bet that was fun.
Was not the easiest conversation to have. But the point is that when we live our life like this, is where your reputation is created, and the benefits are obviously terrific, and they just keep on going. So I talked about this, George, is that in our business, if you have any degree of success, you already obviously have these personal qualities that we're talking about. So my suggestion here is just to build on them with intention, and in a moment I'll share some resources to help. And okay, you actually do go from being the generalist to the specialist as far as pay, reputation, or anything else. So here's a little worksheet first that I thought it might be interesting, where you could either grade yourself, and you could also grade how other people would, and you would grade how other people view you, in your opinion. So 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, and there's likability, confidence, and trustworthiness. So if we were to, grade ourselves here and how we feel other people, view us, and add up the total in that. So on the next page, here's like a completed example. So in this case, was a 24, and this is where I just did it on myself, that it was, a 24. And others I felt, would view me as a 22, and that in 90 days, if I were able to increase my my points by 2, just what sort of impact would it have? And again, I'll just get personal here. I don't mind. I just said that I felt that personally I would have a much better sense of self-esteem. People would connect with me faster and easier, and that the advice I give would be taken faster, and that the speed of most things I do would accelerate, and that my income would increase as well as my free time. So
wow, that's beautiful. Yes, I don't know if I have the nerve to do that. I don't think so. Well, I guess I'm going to have to go ahead and do it. No,
you have to. Sure, you have to do it. I think if you share it, that would absolutely be fantastic. And it's a moving picture. You obviously always just try to get to higher and higher levels. But here's those resources that I was talking about. So my assistant Stacy helped put this together, and she put my book in, at the top of the list there, the Breakthrough Insurance Agency. So
I'm always talking about that book because I say it again and again and again. Every insurance agency needs to get that book. You can get it off Amazon. It's very inexpensive, but it's a game changer for most agency managers. So let me just give you the likability thing, and it's wonderful. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I love it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I just don't want to be plugging myself there, but thank you. So there's here's like the tried and true Bible of likability, and how to make friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie. I mean, when do you think that was written? I think I was
thinking that probably 100 years ago, but maybe not. But I tell you what, I've looked at it all my life. I have it here in my library. Just amazing.
Yeah, incredible book. And then you have The Speed of Trust, that was written by Covey. So not the dad, but the son. And so this book is absolutely incredible. And he talks about a concept that as the level of trust increases in the relationship, that the speed of the transaction increases in relation to the level of trust. So when we are able to increase our trust with underwriters, say, and also with the client and whatnot, then the speed of the transaction accelerates. And if we have a faster transaction, we can make more money, and we could also have more time. So trust is, obviously incredibly important.
Covey's so well known. Yeah, I haven't ever read that, as a matter of fact. I'm going to get that after we hang up here today.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's an amazing book. And then you have The Four Agreements. And The Four Agreements by Dominico Reese is terrific, but there's one specific agreement that he talks about on your word. So when you are, finished with this book, and he teaches the integrity to have with your word, that, what you say is so, powerful, that when you actually do everything you say, when you say you're going to do it, to the degree that he talks about, you really start to stand out. So these 4 books, I think, could really make.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure,
appreciate that.
So as far as our recap, the 3 personal qualities: likability, confidence, trustworthiness, real game changers. And it's the likability factor that gives us the ability to transfer our confidence to the other person. And then we seal the deal with trust, and trust demonstrated just by doing what we say we're going to do every time. And initially, it's very simple. Just when I say I'm going to call you at 1, I call you at 1. Not at 1:02 or 12:55. And of course, for the appointments, the price is always as indicated. So it's just always coming through and being consistent with what we say we're going to do. And when those are the foundation of our personal characters, the result is this massive success.
Oh boy, I love it. There's your contact information. I love this thing because, it's like going to church on Sunday. You're preaching to us, but it's something that we need, we all need to be reminded of this kind of stuff. And I learned some things right here today that I thought, God, I knew that, but I didn't know that. You don't put it in context. And there's that. The other one is if the elephant sits on you, are you covered? That's really good about individual coverages. You'll learn more about that later, because Bart and I are going to do something called Look and Listen, and you'll be hearing about those videos and everything on various coverages. It'll be out in another month or so, about a month and a half probably. But at any rate, that breakthrough insurance agency is something you really ought to have. And Bart answers your questions. He'd be happy to talk to you at any time. That's what he does. He does some great web seminars. So next time you have a seminar, Bart, we'll promote it in here for you and pass the word, because people love it.
Thank you.
Bart, the thing that really interests me, and it's something that you say, and I tell people, and they don't understand it, and I won't get into it right now, but just want to remind you, the thing that most amazing to me is you don't have to market. You have referrals. And this is based, everything we're talking about here today is why you have these kind of referrals, and you don't even have to market. Gosh, I'd love to have a business like that. That's beautiful.
Well, it's really true, George, and it's like the Pareto principle kind of turned upside down. I think that when you have a marketing-driven agency, that you're lucky if you write 20% of the people. 80% just go right on by. And when you have a referral-driven agency and folks are calling you because they were referred by family member, trusted advisor, whatever, you're going to run 80% of those people. So it's just flipped. And there's just a certain way of operating your business and coming across personally, like these qualities that we've just discussed today, that are a game changer for the business.
No question about it. That's perfect timing. Well, listen, thank you again, Bart, for this and for sharing. And you and I should do you should do a Monday morning one of these days, just on the fact that you don't market. Just on referrals. Let's do that one of these days.
Sure, I'd love to. George, listen, always great talking with you. I'm so excited to hear about the new Monday morning products that you have coming up. It's just going to be absolutely incredible. I know you shared.
I hope you're right. I don't know how to quit. I'm just going to keep on going here. With your help and a lot of other people, we'll do it. And so for the rest of you, I'll see you again next Monday morning.